Beethoven's Fidelio resonates certainly as much today as it did 2 centuries ago. Love and faith triumphing over justice and tyranny. Opera Omaha's production, Friday, April 17th and Sunday the 19th, are conducted by my guest, Nicholas Cleobury, who was nice enough to join me in studio this morning. Good morning. Thanks so much for coming. Not to your first visit. You were here previously with Mozart's Magic Flute, and I want to note that this is obviously significant because that production, as well as this one, had the tremendous designs of Omaha's Jun Kaneko, and this sort of completes a triptych for him. Can you just talk for a moment about what we can expect to see in the design of this production?
Well, it'll be similar to the flute in some respects, and a lot of boxes and a lot of back projection and reasonably abstract, but all the costumes and everything are made the same as the set, so it's all absolutely of one. I think I'm right in saying that there's less projection in this than the flute. He went butterfly, Fidelio flute, and the Fidelio was done in Philadelphia first, hasn't been done here, and it's come to his hometown where he's so famous and so wonderful, and it's one of the many joys of being in Omaha is to see Jun and Ree again and be working with them, because he's a wonderful colleague. If I could just say, there's also another nice thing about doing Fidelio, which is really it wouldn't have happened if there hadn't been the magic flute. A lot of the themes are very similar, of enlightenment, and a lot of the music, well, would not be there if it wasn't that, Beethoven knew Mozart, had been taught by him briefly in 1787. And so, it's a really nice continuation of having done magic flute.
Well, certainly for any student of music history, the influence of Europe and the kind of hierarchical line of composers and traditions that were carried on over centuries, actually, are fairly significant.
Yeah, and it's in a long line of, there is a line about how opera develops.
Yes. This is Beethoven's only opera, and it does seem strange that this is the case, considering that he single-handedly revolutionized the symphony, the string quartet, and piano sonata in the early 19th century. Why did he write just the one opera?
Well, he started one before this called Vestasfeuer, and the duet between Leonore and Florestan just before the finale of Act 2 is actually taken from that. So he had been on it, but then he got this story, and this story tells it's a rescue opera of Leonora.
Those were rather popular at the time.
Yeah, they were, and he picked up on all that had happened. He also was more of a he wasn't so much a dramatic. He was a dramatic composer, but not an opera composer. Now I'll try and just explain that he didn't have some of the emotional and insight into character that, say, a Mozart had. His was of a different order. He was much more about the architecture of the music and purely what the notes were. It gets by in Fidelio because the music is so unbelievably strong, and most of all, he believed in the theme he was talking about. There is a discussion. Is this an Enlightenment opera? In other words, does he want an enlightened dictator, which is why he got so fed up with Napoleon, having originally supported him, to make the world better? And is it the same time, because the French Revolution began with people coming out of a prison, is it a revolutionary opera? The answer is, of course, it's a mixture of both. But he wasn't particularly in favour of the revolution. I think he was more an Enlightenment figure, which is where, of course, the magic flute comes back in. Yes. He wanted to have an enlightened regime, but it was, with a royalty or whatever, a senior person. That's what he wanted, and this fitted his bill. And he wrote it in 1804-5, revised it in 6. It was forgotten for 9 years. 3 singers asked for it to be revived. It was done in 1814, 201 years ago.
Well, he had some struggles with this, didn't he?
He had another struggle. He said, "This is my crown of martyrdom." Having written this piece. And I think, quite honestly, he was exhausted by the theatre and opera and everything. He looked at other librettos after that time, but going back to your opening point, I think in the end he was a symphonic sonata form architecture type composer rather than a man of the than for theatre.
And that is the thing that he wrote, as it were, for instruments. Even when he wrote for the voices, he wasn't writing for the voice in terms of living and breathing that text, that score is a very...
He does it very well. I think we shouldn't do him down. But
And there's
you're quite right.
Certainly no denying the genius of Beethoven. Did he finally get it right with these revisions and struggling